Thank you very much, my grade 7s. Welcome back to the third and the fourth lesson for today. Remember, we're still focusing on what? Surface area and the volume. And therefore, our focus is on the rectangular prisms and the cubes. Now, in this lesson, we are building now on what we have done in the previous lesson. The first lesson was focused on what? Lesson 1 and 2 on the surface area. Now we're going to be focusing now, putting our minds on what? On the volume. Right, let's go. This will be the outline. The volume, the use of formulae to calculate the volume and the capacity of cubes and rectangular prisms. But as I did in the previous two lessons, we're not going to be starting with any formulas. The formulas will just come automatically. We have to investigate that. And then describe the interrelationship between the surface area and the volume of the object mentioned above. In the first two lessons, the focus was on the surface area. Then now we'll look at the volume and the interrelationship between the two. Like we did when we started as a norm for now, I'm sure you have now seen how I would start my lessons. I would say, okay, the focus will be on what? On the volume. Then now let us consult a dictionary for maths. And then from the maths point of view, what is a volume? Now, according to the Cambridge Maths Dictionary, again for the schools, primary schools, they are there in your maths libraries, in our libraries at school, by K. Press. He says the volume of a solid shape is the amount of space that it occupies. Once more, the volume of a solid shape is the amount of space that it occupies. The amount of space that a solid occupies, therefore, it will be a what? Our volume. Now, how is it measured? It is measured by the number of unit cubes that are needed to fill the space. Now we're going to use what? The little cubes to measure. In the metric system, common units that are used for measuring the volume are cubic millimeters, cubic centimeters, and the cubic meters. Once more, grade 9s, let us not rush this one. It's very, very important, the volume. Now, according to this math dictionary, the volume of a solid shape is the amount of space that it occupies. Fine? And it is measured by the number of units that are needed to fill the space. In the metric system, the common units that is used for measuring the volume, it is the cubic millimeters, the cubic centimeters, and also the cubic meters. Now, let's have a look at the first example. Now, the volume of rectangular prism and cubes, it will be our focus, as I said. Now, there is a relationship between the two shapes and the 3D objects. Remember, in terms of the dimensions, we said the flat surfaces, the 2D shapes, if we're talking about a rectangle has got a length and a breadth. But now, taking that to a rectangular prism, of which it will be a 3D object, it has 3 dimensions. That will be the length and the breadth, and also the what? The height. Now you can see that for us to have our 3D object, we still need what? We still need the 2D shapes. Because if we put them together, we end up with what? With the objects. And the objects, they do what? They will occupy what? The space. We will see at a later stage. Now, the 3D objects have 3 dimensions, namely, as I said, the length, the breadth, and the height. I am now talking about what? Rectangular prism and the cubes is our focus. You can think of a dimension, as I highlighted earlier, as a direction in space. Look at this example, and not forgetting, just for information's sake, my dear grade 7s, that we have a content area that is what? Space and shapes, and not shapes and space, because we actually need space so that we can have what? The shapes. Now look at these two examples. We have the first one on the left is a 3D shape that is a what? A rectangle. And then in this rectangle, I will have a what? Which looks more like a parallelogram, a length and a breadth. And therefore, the 3D object, the rectangular prism, of which by the look of an eye, it looks more like a cube, will have a what? A length, the breadth, and also the height. Very, very important. Therefore, we still need what? The 2D shapes. Therefore, when we are dealing with what? With the 3D objects. And therefore, now we're saying, in a 3D object, a rectangle, we have a length and a breadth. Therefore, in a 3D object, of which in this case we are referring to a rectangular prism, it will be the length, the breadth, and the third one now factor, that will be what? The height. And then as you can see that we have the 3 for the 3D object. But with a 2D shape, it's just a length and a breadth when you're talking about a rectangular prism. Now, if we're working with the cubes, we know that in order for us to have a cube, we will need 6 squares. And therefore, in a square, we have a length with a length, or a side and another side. But with a rectangle, it's a length which is longer than the breadth. And then we have a 3D object. If it's a rectangular prism, we will have those rectangular prisms that can be formed or built with what? With the rectangles, 6 identical or 3 pairs of identical rectangles. Or we can have 1 pair of square, the square, and the 2 pairs of rectangles. They can also build a what? A rectangular prisms. Therefore, we will see as we go along. Therefore, you can think of a dimension every time they say, what are the dimension of a particular object? It will be what? Think of it as a direction in a space, those measurement. How much does it measure? Now, the cube to measure the space, as we said that they are measured in cubic centimeters. And therefore now, let us look at the cubes to measure the amount of space. This is taken from where? From the definition. Remember, in the definition, we said a volume of a solid shape is the amount of space that it occupies. It is measured by the number of cubes that are needed to fill the space. Hence now, at this stage of the game, we are saying we can use the cubes to measure the amount of space that an object takes up. Now, number 1, let's look at this identical toy building cubes. Can you see the picture there? We have numbered A to F. And therefore, this identical toy building cubes were used to make the stacks, as you can see, or as shown below there. Now, let us investigate what is really happening before we go in depth in the volume. Number 1, let us try to answer these questions. We have the cubes that are used to build the first shape there, A. Can you see there? And therefore, how many cubes can we calculate there? We have 1, 2, 3, and therefore 1, 2, we have 3 on the side length, and then we have 2 on the breadth, and therefore for the height we have how many? We have 2. And therefore in total, how many cubes are used there? We have 2, 4, 6. You can see that we have 6. And then in B, we have how many? At the bottom, I have 3 cubes. There's another one that is hiding that you cannot see, but I think you can be able to say, all right, but now the 2 are on top of one that is below. So it will be 3 that are vertical, and therefore horizontal will also have what? 3. But when we are counting the cubes, we have how many? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just like that. Now look at the stack number C, and therefore the one numbered as D. Then we have E and then F. 6 stacks that are built from the cubes. Then 1.1 is saying, which stack takes up the least space? Now, the least, it will be what? The lesser or the small space that is occupied by that particular stack. Now, let's have a look. The one that is occupying the least space. Can it be A, B, C, D, E, or F? Now, it will be definitely what? It will be definitely B. If you have said is B, then you are correct. Then number 2, which stack now is taking up the most of the space? The one which is occupying more space. Stack A, B, C, D, E, or F. Then you can see that it is most definitely D that is taking the most of the space. Now, at times you can have the number of cubes that are used to make a what? A stack. But now it is how they have been packaged that will determine the amount of space that is occupied. Ne? You'd see that even in the higher grades, especially as you get to grade 12, there is a part of grade 12 syllabus that talks about differential calculus. Therefore, or calculus, you'll be able to see there even in the first year of university, differential calculus. Ne? And then number 3, order the stacks from the one that takes the least to the one that takes up the most. It means now we have to rearrange these stacks, starting with the one with the least up to the one that can take most of the space. Therefore, in terms of the numbers, we are now arranging these stacks in ascending order from the lowest to the highest, if you're thinking about the numbers. And therefore, let's check. The one with the least, it will be B, as we said, all right. And then A, okay. Then E, C, F, and definitely D. Therefore, this was just a warm-up for us. So I said it's B that has the least, and therefore D has got the most, is taking up the most because of the cubes that are there, and therefore we now have to order them from the least to the one with the most space. And therefore, put that pictures into mind. We said it's a B, then A, C, and therefore we have F, and most definitely D. If you have chosen that, or you have said this will be the order from the least to the most, that will be B, A, C, and D. Therefore, from time to time now we'll be using this kind of cubes to determine the what? The volume. Let's move on. Now, the formula, as I said, has to come by its own. Let us investigate. You can think about the volume of a rectangular prism in the following way. A rectangular prism. Step 1, make sure or make the area of the bottom face, also called the what? The base of a rectangular prism. For the prism given here, the one on the right, we have, let's check the length, has got how many blocks? It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is 6 units, and therefore, how many units make up the breadth in this rectangle? It is definitely 3. And therefore, if we want now the area, it means the total number of all the blocks or the tiles, we would say we can count them manually as 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, or 6, 12, 18. Or in a shorter mathematical way, we said, as you have seen in the lower grades, especially in grade 6, where you said, okay, the area of a rectangle will be the length multiplied by the breadth. Then now the length has got how many units? In this case, it is 6. And now what about the breadth? It is 3 units. Then now we are going to multiply 6 by 3. What is 6 times 3? It is 18. But it is 18 what? It is 18 square units. Then let us now look at step number 2. We have started with a what? A rectangle. We're trying to build a what? A rectangular prism. Now, on the 2D shape that you have seen in step 1, now we are going to put the blocks or the cubes on each block. We are now going to put the what? The cubes. A layer of cubes, each one unit high, is placed on the flat base that is on step number 1. And therefore, it is said that the height is of what? 1 unit. The base now holds 18 cubes. Why are we saying 18 cubes? If we can try and calculate them like we did with the shape on step number 1. Each of the shape has taken by a what? A cube. And therefore, in terms of length, let us count how many cubes are there. It will be 6 cubes. And therefore, on the breadth is how many? It will be 3 cubes. Now check the height from the bottom going up. That is the height. It is also what? 1 unit. Now can you see now at step number 2, 3 things now are involved. We have the length, we have the breadth, and we also have the height. But in step number 1, we had a flat face. Therefore, with some squares drawn on there, and it was length of 6 units and the breadth of 3 units. All in all, when we find the area, it was 18 square units. On top of that squares now, I put some cubes with a height of 1 unit, and therefore I'll have 6 times 3 times 1. The 1 is what? It is the height. But remember, the first part, that is the length, and the what? The breadth. And that will be what? That will be the area of the base. The base. Think of the base of a bed. Something there that is what? Underneath or at the bottom part of the bed. It will be the base and the what? And the mattress. Good. Let us move on now. Step number 3. 3 more layers. The first layer was put. Then now we are adding to the 1. We add another 3 stacks or 3 layers, so that there are 4 layers altogether. To the now 1 we added, we put another 3 more, and therefore we'll have how many now layers? 4 layers. And therefore, if we put them, we we pack them on top of one another going up, it means now the height, the height now is what? It is also increasing. Now let's have a look. How many cubes or the units are on the length side? It is 6, and then the breadth, it is still 3. Now let us count the number of layers from bottom up, going up. It will be the first layer, the second, the third, and the fourth. Hence we have now the 4 units. And therefore now you can see that now the amount of space that has now been occupied, of which we refer to that as a volume, it will be what? 6 units, that is the length, multiplying by the 3 units, that is what? Still breadth. But now we have now how many layers? 4. And that 4 we referred to it as a what? As a height. And therefore now, to calculate the volume now of this particular shape here, it will be 6 times 3, then we multiply that by the height, that is 4. And therefore we are saying, okay, meaning the volume, for us to find the volume here, it will be given by what? By the area of the base, and then multiply by the number of what? Layers going up. And therefore we would say, all right, meaning we can in short use this as a formula to calculate the volume of a rectangular prism. Now you know how a rectangular prism differs from the cube. They both have what? 6 sides, but with a rectangular prism, the pair of 2 opposite sides are, or faces are, identical. And therefore, hence now we're saying, okay, a rectangular prism is from a what? A rectangle. But now it has a what? A base. And therefore the formula will be the area of the base multiplied by the height. And therefore L stands for the length, breadth, B, and H stands for the height. And then now, when we are talking now about a cube, I hope you still recall in the first 2 lessons we talked about a cube. And therefore in a cube you can see that this is a length, and therefore going up we have another length. So you can say from side to side is the what? Length. From side to side is a length. Up is another length. And therefore we have now 3 what? Lengths, or the 3 sides. Hence we are saying for a cube we have length multiplying a length multiplying the 3rd length, and therefore edges are all the same length, and then we end up with L to the power of what? Of 3. That is what it has been cubed. I'm sure we have seen this toy before, where we play a game and therefore we try and make sure that we have the same color in one of these 6 faces. If I have yellow as number 1, it means on the top I must only have yellow colors. Therefore now let's check as to how many cubes have been used to build this toy. And therefore the length, it is 3, and the breadth, it is 3. And remember what we said. We said the area of the base, let me try and draw that. If we have this, I'm trying to have a drawing here. Here it is, and therefore you have seen that it has 3 cubes this side, 3 cubes on this side, and 3 cubes. And therefore we said this will be the length, and that would also be the length, and that would also be the length. And therefore now, finding the volume, remember what we said now, or what we have discovered. It is actually the area of the base, and the base, it will be length times length, and therefore multiply by another length that is now measured from where? Bottom up. It will be the height, and therefore we'll have now the volume of this cube. It will be length multiplied by length. Remember what I said, you have done earlier the exponents, and therefore we have 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, even though it is not written. And therefore, because the base are the same, then I will do what? I will add the exponent. Therefore, order of operation, I have to start with the ones in the brackets. Then it will be L to the power of 2 multiplying the L. As I said, the 1 outside this bracket is also raised to the power of 1. And therefore, the volume would be, look, bases are the same, and therefore we'll have L to the power of 3. So the formula now that we would say we have discovered for the cube, it will be L cubed. Thank you. Now, we were now looking at this toy here. Therefore, would say, all right, the area of the base, look at the area of the base. We have 3 on the side and then 3 on the other sides. Ne? Just focus on the what? On the base. And therefore, if we focus on that base, we'll say the area of that toy will be length times length multiplied by another length. And therefore, you have seen that we have 3 multiplying 3. And therefore, let's check going up. It's how many layers? 1, 2, 3. And therefore, it will be multiplied by a 3. Then now let's check. What will be 3 multiplied by 3? 3 times 3, it means 3 by itself 2 times. And therefore, that will be, is it 6? No, it is 9. And then multiply by the 3 outside of the height in this case. And therefore, what will be 3 multiplied by a 9? It will be 27. Can you see? Then it means, in a short way, we can say the volume of this cube here, it will be L to the power of 3. So I have volume, which will be equal to, I have what? I will have 3, and therefore I will have a what? I will have 3. The formula, it will be V, volume is equals to L to the power of 3, and therefore I have 3 to the power of 3. What does 3 to the power of 3 mean? 3 to the power of 3. It means 3 by itself 3 times, meaning it is 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3. It is not equal to 6. I will demonstrate that. Okay, 3 times 3 is a 9. 9 times 3 is 27. And therefore, it will be 27 what? 27. That will be the answer. Now, let's just go back a little bit just to demonstrate why 3 times 3 times 3 is not 9. Think of a simple number. Let me use a 2. A 2 to the power of 2, a 2 to the power of 3, a 2 to the power of 4, a 2 to the power of 1. Ne? Okay, let me put a placeholder. What is a 2 to the power of a 1, a 2 to the power of 2, a 2 to the power of 3? Therefore, I have came across where one was marking, and then I saw a grade 7 learner writing 2 to the power of 3 as a 6. Ne? Now let us prove that 3 to the power of 2 to the power of 3 is not equal to 6. Let me try and demonstrate that. Now for the lack of resources, because I'm limited here, as most of us normally say at our school that we don't have the resources, let me use the very same A4 paper to demonstrate that a 2 to the power of 3, it will not be a 6. Now check here. How many A4 papers do you see here? It's only one. This one. The full A4 paper is only one. Now let me fold this paper. Let me fold this paper once. Let me fold the paper once. Now check here. How many layers do you have? Layers. It is 1, 2. After one fold, it is 2 layers. It means, this simply means that 2 to the power of 1 is what? 1, 2 is 2, because I have 2 layers. Now let's check what will be 2 to the power of 3. Sorry, 2 to the power of 2. This was the first fold. Now the very same paper, I'm folding it now for the second time. The second time. Now let us count the number of layers. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. That means 2 to the power of 2 is 4. Now what is 2 to the power of 3? Remember, this was the first fold. It was 2 layers. After the second fold, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 4, meaning that 2 to the power of 2 is a 4. Now let me fold it for the third time. The third time. If I fold for the third time now, therefore let's count the number of layers. Let me put it this way. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8. All right, meaning that, okay, the teacher was right to say 2 to the power of 3 is 8. Can you see that? It is 8 and not 6. And therefore, let's check. Another one might say, what if it's 2 to the power of 0? What is that? Okay. So 2 to the power of 0. Remember, 2 to the power of 1, there was no fold. It was only one fold. Therefore, it was 2. Then now 2 to the power of 0. 0, it means now I'm not doing nothing to this paper. There's no fold. I'm not folding it. Now how many layers are here? It's only 1. Can you see? 1. Therefore, 2 to the power of 0, it will be a 1. I was just trying to show you from what you have done when you are busy with the exponents. And therefore now we were here to say that 3 to the power of 3, it will not be a 9, but it's 27, because it's 3 by itself. How many times? 1, 2, 3. 3 times. As I said, the what here? The powers is what? Is 1. And therefore, because the base is the same, then we can say we have 3, then 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, hence it's 3 to the power of 3. And therefore, what is 3 to the power of 3 is 3 times 3, which is 9. 9 times 3, it is what? It is definitely 27. I'm sure now you have seen that. And then you can make use of your own what? Manipulatives, the resources, if you are lacking one in your math lab. Now, let us continue. We are now done with this one. Then now let's have a look at this rectangular prism here. How many blocks now have been used? Okay, the length we have 5. Can you see that? 5. And then the breadth is what? Is 2. And the height is from the bottom going up to the top. That is 3. Therefore, now we have seen that, okay, we have seen that for us now to say that we have to find we have to find is 352. We have to find the volume of a rectangular prism. In this case, let me check if I'll be able to draw this. Let me check. Okay, a rectangular prism there, and therefore the dimensions, I said dimensions, direction. This one going up is what is the height, and the height was given as 3. Ne? We have 3 layers, and therefore here or up there going this way is what the length. It was given as 5. Ne? It was given as 5, and therefore we have 5 units there. We have 3 units the side, and therefore the breadth is given as 2 units. That is, the breadth is only 2 units, and then the height is 3, 1, 2, 3, and the breadth is 1, 2, and therefore the length now, the length was 5. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And therefore now, if we now have to calculate what the volume of this rectangular prism, we will say, okay, the volume is given as what? Look at the base. We said the area of the base. Area of the base. Remember, area of the base. Multiply by what? Multiply by the height. Multiply by the height. Now have a look at this. The area of the base. Look at the base in terms of a 2D. What is that? It is a rectangle. And therefore we said a rectangle. A rectangle, it will be length multiplied by the breadth, the area of the base, and therefore I multiply by what? By the height. Now let's bring this into this, the drawn, or what we are now looking to find out. That is the volume of the rectangular prism with the dimensions length 5 units, and therefore I will have the 5 units multiply by the breadth is what? 2 units. That is what? The area of my base. And therefore, I'll multiply it by the height. What is the height? My height there is 3 units. Then help me to calculate this. 5 multiplied by 2, it will be 10 units. And then multiplying by the height of 3 units. Therefore, it will be 3 multiplied by 10. 10 times 3, 10, 20, 30. And therefore, it is 30 units. And that will be the answer there. Ne? But now remember, we said, what are these that we are using here? What are we using? We have put on this 2D shape, we have put these cubes, ne? And then we have said that the answers or is what is calculated in terms of what? Cubic units, and therefore will have to be mathematically correct 30 cubic units, because we said, okay, we have that. In the first step, if you still remember, let me try and go up there. When we started, we said in step number 1, I have what? In this case, I will have what? I will have the area of the bottom face of 5 units by 2 units, and therefore that will be 10. And therefore, I will put how many layers? I'll put 1, 2, 3. I am now putting what? I am putting 1, 2, 3 layers, and therefore that is 5 times 2 is 10. Therefore it means it's the first 10, the second 10, and the third 10. So it will be 10, 20, 30. Hence we have the volume of 30 cubic units. 30 cubic units. Thank you very much. Let's go out here. Okay, it is the volume of 30 cubic units. Now let's check here. As we said, it is volume, and therefore we said the first part is what? The area of the base, and therefore on that base I'm going to put what? I'm going to put the cubes, and therefore the cubes will have what? Several what? Layers, and therefore that will be what? My height. That will be the height, and therefore we said, we are recapping now, and therefore the area of the base, remember the base has got how many? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, and then 1, 2. In terms of the cubes, it is 5 cubes and then 2 cubes, and therefore that will be 5 multiplying by a 2. This will be my base, and therefore I have multiplied by the height. It's 1, 2, 3, 3 cubes that side, and therefore the volume will be, okay, remember the order of operation, and therefore we'll have 5 multiplied by 2, that will be a 10, and then now we say multiply by the 3 outside, then that will be 3 multiplied by 10, 10, 20, 30, and therefore all in all it will be 30 what? Cubic units. This will be our answer, 30 cubic units. I'm sure you have seen this one. Let me put the picture there, what we have drawn, link it with the introduction where we said, all right, in step number 1, we will have this as a 2D shape where I have a base of what? 5 by 2, and therefore to each now I am going to put my cubes in each of the areas there, and therefore the first layer will have now 5 times 2, it will be the first 10 of my cubes, and then I put now the second layer, it will be 20. As we put the third layer, it will be now 30 cubic units. It will depend. If here it was 6 units, it means we'll have how many layers going up? It was going to be 6 layers. Then it was going to be the area of the base multiplied by the 6. And therefore, it was going to be 60 cubic units that would have been used all in all. Now, let's try to go back now to the PowerPoint presentation. We have seen that has been done. Now, here are the activities that you need now to engage on. Let's check the first one. Calculate the volume of these prisms, and therefore now we need to check, are we dealing with the rectangular prisms or the cubes? Now I know you know the properties now. If it is a rectangular prism, we said a pair of 2 identical faces will be the same. If it's a cube, all of the faces will be of equal length, or the area will be equal, or the dimensions will be equal. Now let's have a look at A. We can most definitely say this is a rectangular prism. The length is given as 17 meters, the height is 12 meters, and the breadth is 5 meters. Now, the instruction is calculate the volume of the rectangular prism with the dimensions 17, 5, and 12. The height is 12. Now, let us try and check how we can solve this one. It's 17, 12. They're saying, okay, the height is 12. The length is 17 meters. The breadth is 5 meters. The height was given as 12 meters. 12 meters. Okay. This is definitely a rectangular prism, as you have seen. You can have a rough sketch. Let me quickly have a rough sketch there. And then now I know the length. This will be the length. It is 17 meters. And therefore, where is the height? Up from down, up from the base. That is 12 meters. And therefore, the breadth on the side is 5 meters. Now, the question is, calculate the volume of this prism. And then you can agree with me, this definitely is a rectangular prism. Then now, what have you discovered? We said the volume of a rectangular prism, we'll say, okay, it will be the area of the base. Remember, area of the base, we multiply it by the height. And then in this case, the area of the base will be given by the length multiplied by the breadth. And then we have to multiply this by the height. And therefore, at the end, we'll say, confidently say, this will be now the area that we will use from now on to find the volume of what? Of a rectangular prism. Area of the base multiplied by the height. Now, we just substitute. What is the length there given? It is 17 meters. Please don't forget to put those units. It is 17 meters, and therefore we multiply it by the breadth. Check the dimension. The breadth is 5 meters. That is 5 meters. And then we multiply that by the height. And the height in this case is given as 12 meters. Now let's check how we are now going to do this. Now, we would say the volume would be simple calculation now. It will be the 17 multiplied by 5. What is 17 times 5? I think it's 85. It will be 85. Now 85 multiplied by 12. 85 times 12, that will be 1020. And therefore, remember what I said about this. Now you must go back and say, okay, when we were busy with what? The exponents. We would say, okay, if the bases are the same, and therefore operation sign is multiplication, now we add the exponents. Or because we are dealing with volume, it will be 1020 cubic meters. This will be the volume of this rectangular prism. Or one would say, because we're multiplying 5 multiplied by 12, it will be 60, because 5 times 10 is 60, and 5 times 10 is 50, and therefore 2 5s is 10, 10 plus 50 is 60, now 60 multiplied by 17, that is 1020 cubic meters. Let's check the second one, that is B. Now, if you look at B, B is saying the dimensions are what? 8 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and 9 centimeters. I think you can agree with me to say that this is also a rectangular prism, which looks more like a cube. But look at the dimension. The dimensions. Had it been a cube, the dimensions would be the same. But now they are not the same. Then we have this rectangular prism that looks more like a cube, 8 centimeters, and therefore the breadth is given as 3 centimeters and the height 9 centimeters. Therefore, I'm trying to have a picture here, and therefore we can see that, all right, therefore we can agree from bottom up is what? The height. That is our height, and therefore this one will be definitely the breadth, and therefore this will be the longest side. We'll say that is the length. And therefore, how do we calculate the area of this rectangular prism, of which by the look of an eye it looks more like a cube, but it's not cube. Hence we need to be accurate when we are drawing. And therefore we'll start with what we have discovered. In this case, I would refer to it as what? The formula. Confidently so. The formula to calculate the area of a rectangular prism, this is what we have discovered. We have seen that the volume is given by the area of the base. The area of the base is length times breadth, and therefore we will multiply the area of the base by the height, and therefore we'll get our volume. Now let us substitute. What is the length? It is 8 centimeters. Never forget to put the units there of measurement. Multiply by the breadth is 3 centimeters, and then we multiply it by the height of 9 centimeters. And therefore, our answers, we have seen that it is measured in centimeter cubes, cubic centimeters. And therefore, let's see, now we are now having what? 8 multiplied by 3, 8 times 3, it will be 8, 16 is 24, then 24 times 9, it will be 216 centimeter cubed. You have seen that we said our answers will be in centimeter cubed, millimeter cubed, as well as the meter cubed. It will just depend on the question. And therefore, if you look at C, all the dimensions, if you can have a look at that, are the same. And therefore, what does this tell us? This is definitely a cube, and D is also a cube. Now, let's look at C. Now, for C, the length is given as 5 centimeters, and then the length on the other side 5, and the third side 5. And therefore, remember what is it that we said about the cubes, because now here we are dealing with a cube. This one now, all the sides are of equal length. It's a cube, and therefore the dimensions is 5 centimeters, 5 centimeters, and 5 centimeters. Therefore, in terms of a rectangular prism, we have length, breadth, height. But here we all have 3 lengths. Hence we said the volume will be given by length times length times length. Or one can say the volume, V stands for volume, L to the power of 3. Then now let us do the substitution just like we did with the rectangular prism. 5 centimeter multiplied by 5 centimeter multiplied by 5 centimeter. 5 times 5 times 5. And therefore, we'll say the volume now will be 5 multiplied by 5, it will be 25. And then 25 times 5, okay, we know 4 25s is 100, and therefore now plus another 25, it will be 125 centimeter, cubic centimeters. Therefore, this is the volume of this cube. Now, check the next one. The next one now is given in terms of decimal fractions, decimals. It's 1,5, 1,5, 1,5, and therefore that is what? It is also a cube. But first, let's check as to how another learner can do this. If you have written your formula as V is equals to L to the power of 3, you are not wrong. You'll have V is equal to 5 centimeters. Everything is raised to the power of a 3. You'll remember when you were busy, as I said earlier, with the exponents. And therefore, 5 to the power of 3, it is not 5 times 3, because 5 times 3 is 15. But in this case, it's 5 by itself 3 times. 5 times 5, it will be 25. 25 times 5, it will be 125 cubic centimeter cube. So if you have your answer like that, you are correct. Then now the next one, as I said, it is now on decimals. I know to many of us, decimals is not our cup of tea, but now it is not that difficult. It is a cube that with the dimensions of 1.5. All the lengths are 1,5 centimeters. Therefore, let me try and draw this. It's a cube, and therefore it's given as 1,5 centimeters. The length here, which we refer to it as the height, is 1,5 centimeters. And therefore here is also 1,5 centimeters. And therefore now we would say, okay, same procedure, nothing is changing. The volume will be the length multiply the length multiply by the third length, or we just say volume V is equals to L to the power of 3, not a problem. Then we say V will be equal to, now what do? We just do simple calculations or simple substitution. 1,5 centimeter multiplied by 1,5 centimeter multiplied by another 1,5 centimeters. All in all, how many are they? 1, 2, 3. Good. Then now, at the stage of the game, we can take the first two, and then we say, what is 1,5 multiplied by 1,5? Okay, let me ask you this question first. What is 15? I'm taking out the comma, then now I'm just working with the whole numbers. 15 multiplied by 15, it is, come on, arithmetic, mental math, that is 225. It's 225. And therefore, what will be 1,5 multiplied by 1,5? 1,5 times 1,5, definitely 2,25 centimeter, what? It will be centimeter squared. Therefore, we multiply it by another 1,5 centimeter, which is raised to the power of 1, thinking about the exponents. And therefore, I will have my volume as 2,25 centimeters squared multiplied by 1,5 centimeters squared. That will be 3,375 centimeter. Therefore, remember, in terms of exponents, we said it's 1 there. Therefore, it will be to the power of 3. And then the answer of a cube with the dimensions 1,5 all phases, its volume will be given by V is equals to 1,5 centimeter multiplied by 1,5 centimeter multiplied by 1,5 centimeters. And then 1,5 multiplied by 1,5, it is 2,25, and then multiply it again by 1,5, it will be 3,375. Therefore, make sure that your unit is correct. It will be cubic centimeters. Cubic centimeters. then that will be all with the activities. Now let's go and check what is it that we have next. This is what we have done. We have calculated, but here is just a summary. Therefore, A, it was a rectangular prism that we did where the dimensions were 17, 5, and 12. Then we said 17 times 5 multiplied by 12, it will be 1020. Look at the units. They are very, very important. If you have written them wrongly, you might be penalized. It will be cubic meters. The second one, it was also a rectangular prism with the dimensions of 8 centimeters, 3 centimeters by 9 centimeters. And therefore, the answer that we got, you have seen, is 216 cubic centimeters. And then we had the last two questions were focusing on cubes, and therefore of the dimensions 5, 5, 5, all the faces or the dimensions of each side was 5 centimeter. And therefore 5 times 5 times 5, that will be 125 cubic centimeters. And therefore the last one, which was focusing now on decimals, it was 1,5 multiplied by 1,5, then multiplied by another 1,5. We said 1,5 times 1,5, it will be what? 2,25, because 15 times 15 is 225. Then we multiply it by the height or the other length, the third side of 1,5, it will be 3,375. And therefore look at the units. It's very, very important that you need to put them as the question wanted. That will be cubic centimeters. Therefore now, this one, you need to be careful now. They are saying, okay, let us solve this ones. Calculate the volume of prisms with the following measurement. Now we need to be very, very careful in reading the statements or the questions. We need to come up with the volume of a surface of a prism, of which the surface of a base is already given. And remember, what is the surface base of a rectangular prism? It is given by the length multiplied by the breadth. So it means two dimensions here already have been multiplied for us. That is 48 meters squared. And therefore, with the height of 4 meters. And therefore, we need to calculate the volume. And therefore, this one is now different, because now they are saying the surface of the base is given as 48 meters squared, and the height of that particular prism is 4 meters. Then now we must now calculate what? We need to calculate the volume. First thing, put what you know on the paper. That is the formula that we have discovered. The volume is equal to the what? Area of the base, which is given by length multiplied by breadth, then multiplied by the height. But now already this one has already been done for us. It is given, and therefore the volume, the surface base is given 48 meters. You just substitute it there, 48 meter squared. And therefore, now we multiply it by what? 48 meters squared, we multiply it by 4 meters. And therefore, our volume would be, let's check, it will be 4 multiplied by 8, that will be 32, okay, carry 3, 4 multiplied by 4, it's 16 plus 3, it's 19, then I think you'll agree with me, it will be 192. Now have a look at here. We're at that stage of the game. I will always emphasize on this one. You have done the exponents. You know that there it is 1 even though it's not written. And therefore, even you know that when you are working with volume, it's either in centimeter, cubic centimeters or meter, cubic meters. And therefore, at this stage of the game, it will be our meter to the power 3, and therefore our answer will read it as 192 cubic meters. So here, where was the cache? It was here. The question already states that the surface of the base is given or has already been calculated for us. It's 48 cubic meters. And the height of that particular rectangular prism is given as 4 meters. Then we say, okay, from the formula, we know that the V, the volume, is given by the area of the base. The area of the base. How do we calculate the area of the base? It is length multiplied by breadth, and therefore, the third one now item it will be what? The height. Therefore, we substitute it there is given. This is the area of the base. This is the area of the base. Area of the base is given. Area of the base. And therefore, we substitute where we see length by breadth. That is already been done for us. You can even say the unit there. And therefore, that will be 48 meter squared. We multiply it by 4 meters. And therefore, the answer will be 192 cubic meters. And then let's check the next question. Then we need to be careful. The third one is saying, calculate the length. Listen. Calculate the length of a rectangular prism. If the volume is 192 cubic millimeters and the breadth is given as 10 millimeters and the height of that rectangular prism is now given as what? As 12 millimeters. A volume is already been done for us, but we need to calculate the missing side of this rectangular prism. Therefore, the first thing, if you like, you can try to have a little sketch where you will show that. Therefore, it is indicated that the volume is 192 cubic millimeters. It's given. And therefore, the height is given as what? As 12 millimeters. And the breadth is now given as 10 millimeters. Okay. Let's do this one. These are the type of questions that you will get surely in the exam. To say that, okay, getting straight the volume of a rectangular prism, straightforward. But now look at the missing information here, or what is needed. The question states that we need to find what? The length. We don't know what is the length. We need to find the length. The length is unknown to us. We must get the length. If the height is 12 millimeters and the breadth is 10 millimeters, what we know is that here we're not calculating the volume. The volume is already been calculated for us. But we need what? Our formula. Let's write it. The volume is given as what? The length multiplied by the breadth multiplied by the height. And we know that this first part is actually what? The area of the base. Good. Now let us do the what? The substitution. Now, carefully look at this one. The volume is given, has been calculated, is 192 millimeter cubed, which is equals to the question is saying, what is the length? I don't know the length. Therefore, I put L there, but the breadth is given as what? As 10 millimeters. It is the 10 millimeters. Let me see. Okay, this one here, there was a mistake. It was given as 480. Sorry about that. It was given as 480 millimeter cubed. Okay, and therefore then we multiply it by the height. What is the height? The height is 12 millimeters, and therefore let us change this one. It is 480 millimeter cubed. Right. And then now let us continue. This will be 480 cubic millimeters, which is equals to, now let's check. This one is an unknown. I don't know it. Then I will say, okay, let me work with what I know. 10 millimeters multiplied by 12 millimeters. Surely it will be 120 millimeter squared. And therefore multiply by what? By the L. We are looking for the length. The length is the missing side. And therefore now look here. I have 480 cubic millimeters, which is equals to 120 millimeters squared multiplied by the length. We are looking for the length. What is it that we are going to do? Okay, if we can just go back a little bit, just a little bit, in the number sentence, let me write x plus 2 is equal to 6. And then now the question is to find the value of x. What do we do? Then now surely we need to get rid of this 2. But mathematically, so how do we get rid of this 2? Would say because this is an equation, we must keep the balance. And therefore I have plus 2, which is equals to 6. Then I'm going to say, okay, I am looking for x. I want to remain only with x this side, and therefore I will do the opposite. 2 has been added. Then I will do the opposite. I will do what? I will subtract. Now, what do I need to do on the right-hand side to keep it balanced? I also need to subtract the 2. And therefore, I know now 2 subtract 2 is 0. Then I'm left with x. And then now I can say 6 subtract 2. That will be a 4. Let's check if this is right. What is nice about mathematics is that we're able to check your answer if you are correct. Is there any other subject where you can check yourself? No. Thank you. Now let's check. Let us now take 4 and substitute it here for the value of x. 4 plus 2, it is 6. Can you see that 6 is equals to 6? Okay, good. I was just trying to remind you. Now, that was a plus, and the opposite of a plus or addition is a subtraction. Now have a look at here. It's multiplication. What is the opposite sign for multiplication? Definitely division. So I am going to say, okay, this side I will divide it by 120 millimeter cube, and this side also, what you do on the right hand side, it must be done on the left hand side. 120 millimeter cubed. Right. And therefore have a look at here. Now here we are now having what? 120 millimeter squared divided by 120 millimeter squared is what? A 1. Now what is 1 multiplied by L? I will get L. And therefore on the side now, back to the exponents. Remember, we said when we were dealing with that example of a multiplied by a, and the answer was a to the power of 2, because we said if the base are the same, then now we add the exponents. But now here is division. What does the rule say? If the base are the same, the operation sign is division, then definitely we subtract the exponent. Good. Now, can I simplify this one? Let me first simplify this one. I can say 0 take off 0. I'm just simplifying, ne? And then have a look at here. I have millimeters to the power of 3, millimeters to the power of 2, and therefore because the bases are the same, therefore I will subtract 2 from 3. Definitely I'll be left with millimeters to the power of 1. Good. And therefore now, what is 48 divided by 12? 48 divided by 12, that will be what? That will be 4. That will be 4, 12, 24, 36, 48. It will be a 12. Therefore, the length will be what? 4 millimeters. Can you see that? We'll have the length of that particular rectangular prism as 4 millimeters. Now here, if we have to recap, the question was saying, calculate the length. It was very clear. Length is not given. It is unknown. But what we know is that the volume was already calculated, the breadth was given, and the height was given. Therefore, now we said, okay, we put down the formula to say that that will be the volume, length multiplied by breadth multiplied by height, and then we said, now let us do the substitution. The volume is 480, length is not given, the breadth is 10, and the height is 12. Then 10 times 12 is 120, millimeter multiplied by millimeter, millimeter squared. Therefore, there is the L. Then we said, okay, we want to get rid now of 120 because it has been multiplied. We'll do the opposite. That will be a division. We'll divide both sides by 120 millimeters squared. Then we say, okay, the length now will be what? 4 millimeters. Now let us continue and check here. Okay, the surface area. Okay, this is just a summary of the workout solutions that we have already done. That if we have the surface of the base or the area of the base was given there, then the volume of the first one, it was 192 cubic meters, and therefore what we just discovered or calculated in number 3 was that the volume was given, the length was not given, the breadth was 10, and then the height of that rectangular prism was given as 12 millimeters. And then we did the substitution, and what? Simple arithmetic. 10 multiplied by 12, it will be what? It will be 120, but careful, bear with me that it must be millimeter by millimeter. We have seen is millimeter squared, and therefore we have divided both sides by 120. Then we end up with the length being 4 millimeters. And therefore, in grade 7s, it was also nice in the lesson number 3 and 4 working with you. And remember, our focus now was on the volume, and therefore now we're still building on. We said our focus is on surface area, on volume of cubes and a rectangular prism. We have started with the surface area, build on, then we now just did the volume, and therefore now we are now going to check what now? The conversions, converting to the cubic centimeters or meters or millimeters. Then that will be in the next lesson. Let us take a break, go and refresh, and then you will join us later for an exciting working session in the next lesson as well, where we are now going to work with what?